My name is Steve Blackman, and today we got a very special guest. Our guest has spent decades on both sides of the bodybuilding world. He's been a competitor, journalist, an interviewer, and one of the most recognizable voices behind one of the most influential publications in bodybuilding history, Muscular Development. He's covered some of the biggest names and most important eras in the sport, from the rise to the mass monsters to the modern social media driven bodybuilding world. He's interviewed champions, watched careers unfold, and he's had a front row seat to the evolution of bodybuilding media. But before all of that, he was a competitor himself, including winning the 2007 NPC Natural Colonial Cup, light heavyweight, and overall title. Today, we're going to talk about the sport from a perspective you don't often get to hear, what it's like to actually live inside the bodybuilding industry for decades. We're going to talk about his competitive career, his journey into journalism, his years with Muscular Development, and some of the biggest personalities that he's had a chance to meet, the changes he's witnessed in bodybuilding media, and where he thinks the sport is headed. So without further ado, Ron Harris, welcome to the American Bodybuilding Network.
Hey, Steve, thanks for having me.
And I really appreciate it, man. I have been watching you forever. Not to fanboy you for a second, but yeah, a long time ago when I was competing, YouTube was really taking off. And all of a sudden, I started seeing Muscular Development bubble. And this shredded dude, I'm like, okay, click. And I was like, oh, this guy's a writer for him, which was like my dream. Scoring a photo shoot in one of the big companies was one thing, but I wanted to write. And being an amateur writer, I've always really looked up to you. So anyway, welcome to the show, man. So
Thank you.
so let's take it back. Before you became a writer for Muscular Development, let's just see, where are you from? Where's your childhood? Where was that region of the world for you?
Yeah, I grew up in a city called Waltham, Massachusetts. It's about 10 miles west of Boston. Good sized city. It's not as big a city, of course, as Boston, but a really good childhood. 6 brothers and sisters.
6.
Plenty of woods around us to play in. Yeah, I mean, I had a really good childhood. It wasn't very athletic, but I got into weights on my 13th Christmas when I was 13 years old. I asked for a weight set because I had seen all those pro wrestlers were the first big dudes I used to see and look up to.
Right.
So I didn't know about bodybuilders, but I wanted to be bigger, and I figured weightlifting was the way to do that. Yeah, I think I'm getting way ahead of myself, but yeah. So I started. I was into it when I was a teenager and into high school. I didn't put much size on. I hit puberty really late. Graduated high school at a little over 5'8" and 130 pounds.
Oh, okay.
130.
Yeah.
Did you find it? What year was that?
So I graduated high school in 1987. Yeah.
Not to ask you. Hey, everybody. So would you say back then, because I've talked about this, I was in the Army myself, and they had to make a new parachute because guys are bigger now.
Really?
Yeah, the average soldier's 190 to 200 male.
Wow.
It used to be in Vietnam about 175, and in World War II it was 130, 135, 145. So they went from the T5, T10, I got T11, and they just keeps getting bigger. And now it's gigantic. So now when you're coming down, it's like takes you forever. But were a little smaller. I mean, they were not so big back then. I feel not as. We obviously know the fast food stuff.
I mean, I know that people are taller now on average than they used to be. I don't know if the body weight has changed. I feel like people were probably healthier back then because we didn't have all the processed foods and chemicals and everything floating around the atmosphere. Right. Yeah, but it's hard to say. I was so small. I don't know if they were bigger or not back then.
Really? Well, I mean, I'm 5'10". My brother's about 5'8". I thought 5'8" was always the perfect bodybuilding height.
Yeah, 5'8",
it's like,
5'8",
it's 5'7", 5'8", 5'9" guys. They've always got a good balance, And we were watching one of your videos earlier today, and I was like, God, dog, man, like you are put together. Like you got the legs, everything's in proportion. Like, we'll talk a little bit about that too. So so you didn't really play sports in high school?
I wrestled senior year of high school. It's the only thing I tried. I tried a bunch of sports, baseball, That's the only way. I was never any good. I had no hand-eye coordination. Just was never very good at team sports. And then I found out we had a wrestling team. It was so obscure. My buddy told me senior year, it was like October or something. He goes, "Hey, let's go up to the wrestling team." I said, "We have a wrestling team?" Yeah, so we did it. But we were seniors. We were already seniors, so it was kind of late in the game. But it was fun. I enjoyed it.
Nice. Yeah, I wish I did. I also didn't play any sports really. I played like 1 year of soccer, and I was fat in ninth grade, and they
That's
needed
how
an
I was
11th
too.
guy. It's like if we don't have an 11th guy, we can't play this season. So I took my fat butt out there and I ran. I did the 2 mile PT test to get on the team. It took me like 21 minutes, I could have walked it faster probably. But so then okay, well, this is what everybody wants to know then. Because if you're not wrestling's pretty intense. I mean, wrestling is the ultimate intensity. I will vouch for that. Doing jujitsu, wrestling still is above jujitsu in my eyes as far as the intensity. I mean, those kids are dogs. I mean, you got shoes on too, so you can really drive compared to some bare feet on a mat.
Yeah.
It's kind of like wearing socks almost. But did you get in really good shape because of that though? It's like 130. Like wrestlers got to cut.
Yeah, I was always a thin, lean kid anyway.
Gotcha. So you
But
kind
yeah,
of fell into it.
but wrestling season, by the end of that season, those practices are no joke. I mean, they would do stuff like Shark Tank, where you're in the middle and you just have to keep wrestling. They throw guys at you over and over again until you're and
Yeah,
running
just to gas you out if you got anything left.
running up and down bleachers with somebody on your back,
Oh,
stuff like that. So it was really good physical conditioning.
my
And I was
buddy that
lifting
was
weights. I was lifting weights at home the whole time. Well,
yeah. And I feel there was more of that back
everybody lifted weights back then at home. I mean, every kid had a weight bench at home that I knew. Almost everybody, but we didn't know anything. We would bench press and curl, and maybe if we knew a couple other exercises, we were lucky. Like I didn't do one rep for legs until I was a freshman in college.
then.
Yeah,
Right,
so
because you just don't have like a squat rack to like make it easy on you.
not only that, but I remember because I was going to the boys club in my city because they had a lot more weights. And there was another kid from my high school there. I saw him. He had put a bar up on some uprights of a incline bench or something to do squats because they didn't have a squat rack.
Right.
He said, you want to do some squats? I said, for what? He said, for legs. I said, why would I want big legs? Then my upper body's going to look small. So that was my logic at age 16, 17.
That is funny. Yeah, I always laugh, and I know you probably had the conversation about the whole I don't want to lift weights to look like a man. It's like, yeah, it just happens overnight. It's so easy to do.
Definitely.
But yeah, that's funny. I want my legs to be too big. Heck, you know how it is now. Everyone's trying to catch up because they never did them. They're playing catch up now, especially if they start competing. They're like, oh man, you really see, especially the taller they get. It's like, you got to have a background of squatting in some kind of way or even just being a bigger guy or something to have some mass down there. So wrestler, and then did you go off to college or did you go off to work?
Yeah.
What led you to that bodybuilding, that first like gym membership? Or
I can tell you exactly what happened. So I had bought some leader weight gain powder that summer before I started college. I had been accepted. So I grew up in the Boston area, but I applied only to colleges in California because I said I want to go to California.
Yeah.
There was no other real reason. So I went to University of California, Santa Barbara I only ended up going for 1 year, but I was in the dorm. It was off-campus dorms. I'd only been there a couple of days, and I forgot that when I got the weight gain powder, there was a little thing on the side we could send away, and they would send you a free issue of Flex magazine. So my mother forwarded all my mail to me, and it showed up in my mailbox at school. I was like, wow. The very first issue, it had a woman bodybuilder on the cover. I think it was Kathy Paleo. But inside, this would have been fall of '87. There was a pictorial on Sean Ray, who hadn't turned pro quite yet. Was almost a pro. Lee Haney, Lee Labrada, Gary Stridham, Mike Christian, Barry DeMay, Mike Quinn, that whole crew back then. And I was just in awe.
Yeah.
And I tore out the pictures. I taped them to the wall of my room, and my roommate thought I was odd for doing that. And I went to the campus bookstore. I said, it was off campus. I So I'm going to find out about bodybuilding. I got to be one of these. I want to look like one of these guys, no matter what it takes. So I looked and saw the only books they had on bodybuilding in this campus bookstore were the Nautilus bodybuilding book and the Nautilus advanced bodybuilding book. And I bought them both. And I read that first one, Nautilus advanced body. It had Boyer Coe on the cover doing a Nautilus curl machine with those double peak biceps of his. And Arthur Jones wrote one and Ellington Darden. They were so convincing with their writing that Nautilus machines were vastly superior tools for physique development than free weights. They had totally made free weights obsolete. So I said, well, shit, I got to find some Nautilus machines. And then the school had a free gym that was like a giant trailer full of crappy, dusty, rusty free weights, but it was free. But instead, with what meager money I had, I found there was a Nautilus room on campus that you had to pay for, and it was just Nautilus machines. So you went around the room and did a circuit, and they didn't even have like a leg press. They just had the leg extension, leg curl. But I immediately joined and started doing the advanced routines from the Nautilus book because I said, well, I don't have time. I don't have time for the regular routines. I'm gonna start with these advanced, and it was all like drop sets and supersets and all these things. But for a good almost 2 years, all I used were Nautilus machines, and I was absolutely convinced that was the key to looking like, I forgot Rich Gaspari. He was a huge inspiration. Looking like these guys that I was really in awe of.
Those machines were great, though.
They were
so good. If I'm not mistaken, that's the Mike Mincer. He had that circuit room. He might have had a leg press when he was training Boyer Coe. Is there a video of those high intensity schools?
Yeah. There was a video of Boyer in my training. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, my dad showed me those because he was the biggest Mike Mincer fan, and I can tell you why. It's because they act exactly alike. My dad and Mike are, you know what I mean? And you know what I mean. I don't even need to say it. They just very to the point. Don't waste your time. Too much stuff is dumb. And my dad, he don't spend more than 30 minutes in the gym just because he's like, nah, I've destroyed myself. There's nothing more I can do. And he's learned a lot from it. But he showed me that forever ago. All right, so you get the protein powder or the weight gainer, right?
Yeah.
You get and you see all the pictures. It's like, so the journey begins at 18, pretty much. Like in the college, going to the bookstore. They only had so much. Doing the Nautilus machines. How long before you were like, all right, I'm getting up. I'm getting on stage? Because that is a small or a really long window for some people like myself. It took me forever to actually get up there.
Yeah, I didn't wait that long. I should have waited longer, probably in retrospect. But so I transferred. I found out really quickly, or I figured out that most kids weren't getting out of that California school in 4 years. They loved being it was right on the beach.
Yeah.
It was this huge party scene. So the 4-year degrees took like 7 or 8 years for most of these kids to get. They didn't want to leave. Right. So I was like, I don't have time for that. I want to get moving with my life. So I transferred to Emerson College in Boston, and I immediately found a Northeastern University. I looked around to see where can I find another Nautilus place to train at. It's got to be Nautilus. So that was fall of '89, my sophomore year of college. I was about to turn 20. I found the Nautilus place, started training there. And again, now I started going to the newsstand and finding other bodybuilding magazines. And I saw one called Natural Bodybuilding. Like, natural? I was natural, but I didn't know I was very, very naive. I thought like Rich Gaspari and Lee Haney and those guys, I didn't know there were steroids. And I had no idea.
Yeah.
And, I thought,
years.
So I had no idea. But anyway, I saw one
me neither. I never knew until later.
Yeah, Natural Bodybuilding, and I opened up in the back. They had a contest schedule, and I'm like, oh boy, there's natural contests too. You can compete. It was ANBC was the big organization in the Northeast part of the USA back then, American Natural Bodybuilding Conference. They were lifetime free. That was their stipulation. They tested through polygraph. I didn't care because I was natural anyway. I wasn't worried about any of that. But I saw in March of '89. They were going to have a show that was like a 40-minute drive from me. I said, well, I'll do that. That'll be my first contest. So I had no idea about dieting, posing, any of that. My posing, I had some VHS tapes of Arnold Classics and Olympias, and I was watching those guys, but that was the extent of it. And as far as like, there was no information back then, or if there was, I didn't know where to get it. There was no internet yet. So
right.
Books, magazines, if you were lucky enough to find the info you wanted, but Yeah, I was completely clueless about diet. So I showed up at that show, not in any kind of condition, like 140 pounds. When I probably, had I been super lean, I probably would have been like 120. No, I looked around and said, "Why is everybody so dark?" Because I didn't know you're supposed to do the color. I didn't.
Right,
I
right.
didn't.
You
I
ain't
was
had no
so
Jantana.
there was nothing. I think actually I had taken some. There were these pills they used to sell in magazines called cantazanthin,
I remember them.
and they just made you a little bit orange. I
Yeah,
figured
big old. Yeah, they always had a guy that was like super dark right next to him, and
so. I figured that would be enough. But anyway, I show up and I look around like, oh. So they didn't even have a teenage division. I was 19. I was 19 at the time, but they didn't have a teen division, so I did junior. And back then, those classes were huge. My class was like 25 kids in the junior short class or medium class, whatever it was. And I got smoked. Didn't like last
oh,
call? I don't know, like 18th out of 25 or something. Or maybe it was just tied for 16th with a bunch of other kids. But
that's a lot of guys
as poorly
anyway.
as poorly as I did, I had a great time. I started talking and meeting other people that competed, and I said, I'm doing this again. And I did it again in July that year. I did a little bit better. At least I had a little bit of a tan, but stupid me, I went and I had a sunburn that was peeling, so I had like strips coming off me on steroids.
Oh,
It was ridiculous, but yeah, I never had a coach in all my years, and looking
Right.
back, like there were no coaches back then that I knew of in the late '80s, but it would have saved me so much time. Just somebody would have said, no, don't do that. What are you doing? But I had to just make a lot of dumbass mistakes on my own.
And how old was that first show again?
So I did 1989 was my first show.
Okay, so
July
it's
89 was my second show. 1990 was my last show before I moved back to California. And the funny thing about that one was they didn't even have a junior or a teenage class. So I had to go into men's open in 1990. So I was 20, and there was about 20 or 25 guys in the class again. The shows were loaded back then.
yeah.
And the runner-up was this young guy named Tito Raymond. I was like, man, he's really good. But I thought he was like significantly older than me. Turns out we were the exact same age. I was like, man, why does he look so much better? So it took me a long time. And it was after that show, after July show, because I went up to visit the head judge, because he had a gym about 20, 30 minutes north of me. I wanted feedback. Like, what do I need to do? Why did I took fifth place out of sixth or something. I looked, what did I do wrong? He's like, well, the guy that won was he was hard as nails. You were soft. You had baby oil on. You had skin hanging, peeling off you, and this and that. He says, what about your training? I says, what about it? He goes, what do you do for training? I said, well, I use Nautilus machines. He goes, well, how's that working out for you? I said,
Oh,
This was he owned a Gold's Gym, and he had machines and plenty of free weights. He said, it's like a cult. It was like a big sales pitch, kid. You fell into their trap. Nautilus machines are great, but you need to start using some free weights.
yeah.
I said, maybe he's got a point. So I found a World Gym that was pretty close to where I lived. I still had the Nautilus Room membership, but I found this World Gym and started using a mix of free weights and machines. And I hadn't put on much size at all in the past, I'd say year and a half, training with the Nautilus machines. All of a sudden, I started putting a little more size on. So I'm like, this guy's right. They were right all along. You need some free weights in there.
that's fair. I think it reminds me of when anybody's fitness journey at all starts. It's usually one kind of thing. Like they get hooked on like maybe the P90X back in the day. And then next thing you know, they drop 30 pounds, and that's like the beginning. It's something they could actually stick to, or it's even like a diet. Like, oh man, I did keto. Some like 40-year-old dude or something, starts doing keto. They see all these changes immediately. But when I started training, it was military bases, and for the most part, Army guys kind of know how to lift. But it was, remember that product Endothil?
Sounds
It
familiar.
was in GNC for, it came and left probably within 6 months. They had a little pamphlet of muscle groups to work out on a 5-day split. And it's chest, back, legs, shoulders, arms. And then just had a couple of demonstrations. I did that workout probably until maybe, this year for my entire life. It's just been the same, and it was just because of that I actually stuck to a routine. And that when in doubt, I did that same thing over and over again. And in Iraq, I didn't know anything about really bodybuilding, so I started getting those DVDs from bodybuilding.com with these $300 orders because over there we're blowing our bank account on
Yeah.
bodybuilding stuff. We're
Mhm.
ordering, and they do a good job trying to get you a gym when you're deployed. Nikki could vouch for that. She's been in
Yeah.
Afghanistan. I've been in Iraq, and you try to bodybuild. And so my roommate, big, jacked, dark-skinned Dominican guy that you would think was on gear, just walking around. He started training with me, and he'll never give me the credit. Maximilian Perez, if you ever see this interview, it was because of me. I got you started. And I ordered these Ronnie Coleman DVDs, and they were the iconic DVDs that we've all seen thousands of times. But this was the very first time, and this was 2007, and the Olympia had happened, but we didn't know the results yet. I didn't know what websites to look. I didn't know what forums talked about the stuff, and there's no magazines on the shelves over there. There's no shelves.
Yeah.
So you're like, there's no commissaries and stuff. So I ordered all the DVDs, including the Olympia DVD of that year. And every time we'd go out, I mean, we could have just gotten blown up. We'll come back, and then there goes the Ronnie Coleman DVD. We watch him doing arms for about 30 minutes. We drink our No Explode and went to the gym every day like clockwork. And I just said to myself, one day I'll eventually be up there. But I didn't know when it was going to happen because I had so much to do. I was like making up for lost time. But all right, so you had this first few shows. And so how many do you think you've had? Have you ever counted them?
I did. I want to say it was like, it's either 30 exactly or 31. So it wasn't that many. I mean, I know people have done, there's a guy who just retired from the Army, Caleb's name. He's done like 150 shows or something.
Oh my goodness.
Really? What's his name?
What's Caleb's name? I follow him. Yeah, Vintage Muscle.
I met a lot of bodybuilders. I took a break for a little while, but I left around when I was like 32. 7 years ago, I kind of stopped paying attention to it for a second. And so I'm kind of relearning everyone's name a little bit.
Caleb Pike, CRT, 28-year veteran of Army healthcare. Yeah.
Wow.
I think it might be like 200 shows. Yeah, it was a lot.
That's crazy.
Some guys can just do it.
I thought it was so hard to compete while in the Army, personally. I did 3 shows while I was active duty, and it was so hard getting the time off and being able to prepare without having to run everything away. And it was so hard.
Did
You
you
guys remember the late Cedric McMillan?
Yes.
I was just about to ask you. He was my WLC instructor.
Oh, really? Because he
wasn't a pro yet.
Really?
It was right before he got it. Sorry.
I was at the Nationals when he turned pro, but I remember he's one of the last guys that got a special invitation to the Mr. Olympia. I want to say it was 18 or 19 because he was doing field maneuver, whatever it was. Yeah. He was out in the field for like the last part of the competitive season, and it was literally impossible for him to compete and get a qualification. So he asked for an invitation, and they granted it for him to be in the Olympia that year.
Let me tell you, when I showed up at WLC and this dude turned the corner, I was like, what size uniform? I was Mr. Wannabe Bodybuilder. He saw me, him and the warrant officer in charge of the course. Warrant officer was on Cedric's program, looking real big, walking around with his shirt with the biceps popping. I'm like, oh yeah, Cedric's got him. He's coaching it, whatever. And the warrant officer, and they'd kind of be like, first day, who liked to work out? And they look around, and we just I kept my hand down. I was like, hell no. That's a 300-pound guy over there. I ain't saying nothing. You're going to want to challenge me to something or whatever. He was the coolest sergeant I have ever had in the Army, I swear. He was so highly motivated. And you think like a big dude like that, oh, man, he gets out of doing stuff? No. He was there at 4 a.m. every morning in the freezing cold, frozen canteens, laughing at us, just dogging us. And then, I did not to ramble on, but the Palmetto Classic. If anybody knows the Kevin DeHaven shows, are you familiar with Kevin?
I know of him. I've met him before, yeah.
Yeah, so Kevin's good friends with like Jay and everybody. Well, one of his best buddies, Gabe Miles, was my coach. Gabe's best buddies with Cedric. They grew up together in Ridgeway, South Carolina. And Cedric came and guest posed at a show where I managed to squeeze the first place in the heavyweights. And that was so cool because he didn't recognize me at first. And I was like, "You don't recognize me from WLC?" And he goes, "Oh yeah." I had gotten like the highest score on CQB they ever had. And so like they kind of remember that kind of stuff. Or like if you break your ankles on an obstacle course, I've done that too. They remember your name when you do that, like, "Oh, we had a guy years ago." They tell your story every time. But all right, so you've done 30 shows, and now I saw a video. I'm gonna play something actually. Let's share screen and let's mix it up a little bit just to let's see where. Oh, I don't have it. I don't have it ready. Here we go. Got two. Yeah, and I'm gonna edit this afterwards, and I'll chop out any dead time and stuff.
Okay.
Yeah, I got the idea for StreamYard actually from your channel. I didn't know if that's exactly what you would use because there's a few operating systems now for this, but
Well, I use StreamYard, yeah, definitely.
yeah, they're pretty cool. They double charged me once, and they credited everything back and let me upgrade for free and stuff.
Good. I've had a hell of a time with trying to reach their customer service.
Oh, have you?
It's almost impossible. Yeah.
Well, what's funny is I said that too until I emailed them in, and then they were every time.
Okay.
Maybe somebody just wasn't paying attention to their phone for a few days, and then they got behind it, and you were lost in the sauce. I think that happens with my education girls with the Army VA system sometimes. I feel like they might not. They have so much traffic probably. But all right, so I saw a few videos. I was going to play for the audience here. So for everybody that that's been keeping up with this channel, you may have not actually seen any of his posing routines. And so I obviously saw this way back in the day. But so tell us a little bit about this show, 2011 Team Universe.
Yeah, you better turn the volume off or they're going to demonetize you.
Yes, sir.
I know.
I fight that battle all the time.
Yeah, so this was 2011 Team Universe. That's the closest technically I came to turning pro. I took second in the open heavyweights.
God, he looks good.
208 pounds there. Could have been a little bit leaner, I think. This 2011, yeah.
And how old were you?
So 2011, this was summer. I was 41 because my birthday is September. So I was a little shy of turning 42. It's 41 there.
Okay, this is motivational for me, man. I mean, I'm 39 now, and I've lost a little bit of size, and I'm coming back into bodybuilding, got a coach and everything, doing the whole 9 yards. And I've been looking at guys who are about 40 to just see how I'm stacking up and stuff. And this looks damn good, bro. I'd be scared to stand next to it.
I mean,
everything's in.
I always say, my genetics, they're a little better than average. They're certainly nothing special. But I mastered posing as well as I could, and I don't think this was my best condition, but conditioning was how I beat a lot of guys over the years. Once I figured out how to get in condition,
Right.
Especially as I was in the Masters, I was beating guys I had no business beating. Like when I did the Universe in 2013, I was fifth out of 23 or 24 guys in the class. Yeah, that's awful footage, but
Hey, lighting and stuff. Well, you've covered that before, not to talk about this show because this is obviously a camcorder or something.
Yeah.
But the backdrops for these really nice shows, sometimes they're a miss. Sometimes they're a hit. And I'm loving the Battle Up production, black with little stars that kind of fade in and out.
Mhm.
I'm loving how everyone looks with that. But you've covered how there was an Olympia with brown letters. And
Yeah.
how, or maybe somebody on the show did, I can't remember exactly, and how you almost couldn't see them, like camouflage, like almost like
Fade into the
deer.
back.
Yeah, and it was like, oh man, all that hard work.
I feel off the year Samson Dowda won the Olympia 2024, the backdrop and the lighting, it was really didn't do any favors for guys with very dark complexions like Samson. And
Right.
it's sad because the footage of him, I was there and he looked a lot better because if you could see it up close, the backdrop's it's not as distracting. It doesn't interfere as much. He looks so much better than that. But I agree that Freddie does a great job with the backdrops. Freddie and Sheila with Texas Pro, and of course Fuad with that Detroit Pro with the plain black backdrop.
Mhm.
the issue with all these crazy LED screens and banners and everything, it's that they're trying to appease the sponsors. They're just
Of
trying to
course,
get the
yeah.
sponsors happy, because if you're asking somebody for $5,000 or $10,000 or more to get they want to make sure people they're seeing their logo all the time. So even if it is right behind a physique and it's screwing up the lines of the physique, it's a bad. I see both sides of that argument.
For sure.
Well, that's why I like the Texas Pro, because they had that screen above all the competitors where they're constantly playing ads, but it's, when you're taking the footage, you're not seeing them.
Yeah.
So I'm going to change our screen here in a second. For some reason, it likes to hide itself every once in a while. Did you ever experience that?
I don't know. It took me a while to figure out StreamYard. I made a lot of dumb mistakes before I figured it out.
It can be a little funny sometimes because it'll act like it doesn't have the thing that you setup that you want. Yeah.
I was recording on Skype before that, and that was so much worse. So much worse.
Was that what you used in the beginning?
Yeah. I mean,
I was always curious. Yeah.
When I got that job, which I didn't really want, the online editor of MD, I started that in early 2017. I was the last in a long line of online editors. Dave Palumbo was the first. David Bay was the last one before me. I didn't want to do any. They said you're going to have to make videos. I don't want to do that. I'm a writer. I want to write. Why can't I just write? But I had to try to figure it out, and I made so many embarrassing mistakes. Like one time, just probably one of the most glaring examples. Because I don't like to dwell on the dumb shit that I did in the past, but one time I recorded a whole interview with Rich Gaspari that didn't record.
Oh no!
And I was like, oh my God, I felt so bad.
Yeah.
And he was just upset because he's a busy guy. He didn't have time to do it again. But yeah, it took me a long time. I actually didn't get a lot better at this until MD went out of business in November 2023, and I decided to resurrect my YouTube channel, which I never got rid of, but I hadn't done much for it. I had my YouTube channel. I started in 2007, so the channel's 19 years old at this point.
Yeah.
But I didn't do much with it for all those years with I was MD, because it was just something every once in a while I'd put a video on.
So I guess that is the next section here, and this is probably where my interest is really peaked, is how in the world did you get with Muscular Development? No offense, but how did that even happen? It's such a big deal.
So I have to go back to early 92. I was working, in the 90s. I got my start in this industry with a TV production company called American Sports Network out in Rosemead, California. Lou Zwick was the producer. And they had a monthly show that we produced called American Muscle Magazine. It started out as a 1-hour show. Then they bumped it down to half hour. Then they took us from ESPN to ESPN2. But anyway, long story short, it was a really cool show. It had contest coverage, athlete profiles, the Valio workout that was sponsored. We had nutrition. John Romano used to do a cooking segment. We had gossip, fashion. It was a really cool magazine format show. And in early 92, I was one of the producers. I was a producer at age 21, a TV producer.
Wow.
Shooting segments out in the field. So I went down to the Ironman headquarters in Marina Del Rey at the time, and Lonnie Teeper, who was their head writer basically, he was going to do the preview for the upcoming Ironman Pro that was going to happen in a few weeks in there in California. And while I was there, we did a tour of the building. We shot some footage, and Steve Holman was the editor. And I said, by the way, Steve, I do a little bit of writing. I write all the scripts for the show now. How does one go about getting published in your magazine? He says, well, why don't you give me a sample, write something and fax it to me. That's how we didn't have email yet. Yeah. So I did that. And he's like, all right, we'll print it. We'll pay you this much. I'm like, oh boy. All right. So I was published. That was I think the first thing I had published was July 92 issue of Iron Man with Milos Sarshev on the cover. And I was in Iron Man every month with either feature articles or a column for about 20 years. From Iron Man, I put my feelers out. I wanted to write for everybody. I started writing the next year for Muscle Mag International, the late Bob Kennedy's magazine. I did a lot of work for them and their American Health and Fitness, their men's fitness type of magazine, Planet Muscle, Muscle Media 2000. I did a good amount of writing for them. it wasn't until, so that was the 90s. It wasn't until 2001, there was a guy named Josh Brown who wrote under the name of The Sandwich. I don't know if you guys remember this. This is going back a ways, 2001. So he knew my writing from the other magazines, and I think we were talking on Get Big forums. We knew each other from the forums. He contacted me and said, "Would you be interested in like subcontracting?" Like he did a lot of the athlete columns for Muscular Development. This guy, he was a ghostwriter for them. I shouldn't say ghostwriter because he would call and we talked to the athletes. We didn't make up all this stuff out of the air. We would call the athletes and talk to them, and then write it in first person as Craig Titus or David Henry or Jay Cutler or whoever it was. Didn't matter. So he gave me a few of those. But actually, the first assignment I ever did for Muscular Development that he didn't want to do because he was just getting burnt out on writing was an interview with Jenna Jameson, the adult film star, because he had seen in Testosterone magazine, which Muscle Media 2000 became, I had done a couple interviews with adult performers that were really pretty well received. So he's like, "You want to interview Jenna Jameson?" I'm like, "Yeah, sure." So that was the first thing I wrote for MD. And then he started giving me athlete columns that he didn't want. And then he left. All of a sudden he decided he didn't want to write anymore for the magazine. So that's how I got with MD. And I was freelance with them so that was late 2001. I didn't become a full-time part of their staff until early 2017. But
Wow.
in all those years in between, I wrote for anybody I wanted. I did a lot of writing for Iron Man, Muscle Mag, and there's almost nobody I wouldn't write for. I only wrote one muscle and fitness article in all those years, so I didn't have much work with Weeder, but I pretty much wrote for everybody else.
Yeah, I'm not even sure how much you'll have probably some better perspective on this. How much work is there even like that? I mean, muscle and strength. So some of the articles that I'm featured in have about 8 million views, but I really wonder how much people are, and I love muscle and strength to death. They're the guys who got me my first big everything, and I would love to talk to Dan and Chris and the guys that run the place and be like, "Hey, could I ever potentially write for y'all?" But I've never been known for writing amongst all my buddies or anything. It would be such a left field thing to be like, "Hey, can I start writing for y'all?" So I made this channel, and I was like, well, maybe this is a way to kind of get into the whole journalism, side of stuff. So after publishing books, I've published in a couple of other pieces too, and I was like, well, maybe this will actually lead to something. But do you know of anybody still writing for anyone?
It's rare. I mean, like muscle and fitness, muscle and strength. I mean, there's almost nothing out there anymore to write for. I mean, I used to make a really good living as a writer. I mean, I'm grateful for it. It's gone now, but I'm grateful for the years that I was able to do that and make a good living from it. But I haven't been paid to write in almost 3 years now.
Oh, wow.
But YouTube is the way to go because people don't read anymore. They just don't.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
That's why the magazines all went out of business, is because
Nobody wants to read them.
if you're not that old, but I mean, like I have a 26-year-old son. He's never bought a magazine in his life, and he never will.
Right.
He never
He's
will.
never used the phone plugged into the wall. No, I'm just kidding. But
He's never seen a phone plugged into a wall.
Yeah. Well, so let's see. I started in 2005 with the whole bodybuilding train, and I didn't compete till I was like 27. It took forever, just because I was like, I'm not ready yet. I'm not ready yet. And then eventually you're ready, but you're not like ready. It's like eventually you are big enough to start competing, and it's like, all right, now when you gonna stop being fat? It hurts getting that lean. Did you ever have a hard time dropping the weight when you got bigger, or was it kind of still? I mean, I feel like it was harder when I got heavier.
I'd say naturally I was an ectomorph anyway, so I always had a fast metabolism. For many years I bulked up and I force fed myself to get to my off season used to be anywhere from 235 to 245. One time I almost touched 250, but face like a chipmunk.
Yeah.
Jelly rolls on the side I could grab. But once I cleaned up my diet, I would put all that weight on, and I didn't see how fat I was getting. It was it's crazy how this pattern repeated itself every year. Usually, like I would see pictures from either Christmas or New Year's, and I'd be going, "Oh my God, what the hell? I look like I'm about to pop. I'm a fat chipmunk." So that's when I would start leaning up. But once I once I would clean up my diet completely and add in a little bit of cardio, because I never used to do cardio now, see, the weight would come off really, really fast. To get down to like striated glutes, that was still everybody has to suffer to get to that point. So, the first 50% of the fat would come off really easily, and then after that, of course, it became harder and harder to get
I'm
off.
sure everybody probably, I'm sure everybody suffers, even men's physique guys. Regan, I think, said it best in one of his movies. Not that anybody else hasn't said this, but getting that lean hurts.
Mm.
It doesn't matter if you know, 300 pounds or 175, getting down that lean. I mean, I used to coach a lot of guys, and there's that wall around 8% that, now the attention to detail becomes very meticulous. I think bodybuilding's harder than the Army. I mean, I really do. Different Army schools and stuff that I've been through were a walk in the park. You gain weight. The Army, certain things can be very challenging. Sure. Oh, yeah. Like you get your butt handed to you a lot. But, they try to feed the crap out of you if you're skinnier. And if you're bigger, they're like, all right, one plate, and like the drill sergeants don't know anything about nutrition. But like, I was a heavier guy when I went in, so I had to kind of put myself on a diet. And then when I left, I just looked jacked because all that muscle that was just hanging on me from before. But it wasn't from like lifting; it was just from being bigger and stuff. But well, hell. So let's see. We just had a show. You just had an episode yesterday on the Austrian Pro.
Austrian Oak Pro, yeah.
All right. So how did you think about the placings? We're gonna look at that real quick a little bit, and then I'm gonna cut you out for the day. You can get on with your stuff. But
I thought the placings were dead on. I had no argument with Regan winning. I thought he looked great. I thought he could have even won the week before. I had no issue with Patrick Moore beating him, but it could have gone either way. It was a coin toss.
Yeah.
I think you're right. I think that some of these guys they're just so good. The quality of them is just really great. And, it's a Corvette versus a Shelby Cobra versus a GT 500 versus a Dodge Charger, with the Hemi. And it's like, pick your favorite. Everyone's going to have a different guy they like. However, there are these parameters that I think is the equalizer, where when someone gets robbed, there's at least enough talk going around to at least give a little bit of that conversation. And I think it actually makes people look at the bodybuilders more when they're like, I don't know, I hate to say it,
I want to emphasize, because I say this on like all of my podcasts when I'm talking about the judging, is you guys, the fans who are fairly new to the sport now and following it, if you guys are complaining about the judging, I said, you should have been around 20, 30 years ago when some of these placings were horrific. Like, there were many Mr. Olympias I went to where Mr. Olympia kept his title, and he should not have kept his title.
I've talked about that. Obviously, I bite my tongue a little bit. I'm going to go ahead and just say it. I'm going to be funny here. So over the last couple of years, you've had a guy in your comments that's been kind of like I would crack jokes and stuff. It's my other account called Witch Doctor.
Okay.
Do you remember that name? A guy named Witch Doctor, like making jokes or anything?
No, you haven't been that active. I wouldn't. I know all the names of the people who are always there.
Yeah. I haven't been on there in a while though, just because not from that that platform and stuff. But yeah. So hold on, back out of what we got going on here. So yeah. So at first, some of the pictures I saw, I was like, oh no. Like that one right there, I was like, this guy's pretty dang shredded. This guy's pretty shredded. I was like, oh man, look at John Jewett. He looks, and I was like, dang, Regan actually doesn't look too great. And then when I actually watched the video, I was like, okay, no, Regan's bringing it home. He looks good. It's just sometimes when they snap that photo, one guy will not be hitting it perfect, and the other guys are still locked in. And I'm like, okay, that does happen a lot,
And another thing is, a lot of the fans, we have way more fans of bodybuilding now because it's so much easier to access the sport than it used to be. You don't have to buy anything. If you have a phone, you have, all the content in the world for free on your phone now. Whereas before you had to go buy the magazines, you had to physically go to contests. But anyway, what that's led to is a huge number of these fans. They're more so a fan of one or two or three athletes, not so much the sport. So they might be like a Sam Sulek fan or a Regan Grimes fan. So they don't understand how the contests are judged and what qualities and attributes the judges are looking for. So if their guy doesn't win, they cry foul and he was robbed and the judging politics, and they don't know what the judges are looking for.
Well, and I think sometimes, I mean, you know, I've seen, you know how it is. You've trained a lot of guys for shows, and the bodybuilding show can be like the best day of someone's life or like the worst day.
Yeah.
And, you know, honestly, backstage at bodybuilding shows, you know, if the motivation and morale isn't really going, there's a lot of sad faces walking around. And the only guy who's happy is the guy that won, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes, you know, I mean, I'm pretty happy when I place at least good, you know, but like some people, they wanted first and second, they're not having it, which brings me to my next topic, which we're so close to the end here. The channel's so new, it'll only get so many views, and hopefully we can have you on again. We have a topic or a show you want to talk about, get your perspectives and stuff. But there was the guy in Classic who was having a rough time with his third placing.
Yeah,
Last night.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You saw that, yeah. Of course you did. But I was like, I haven't seen that in a minute. As far as somebody going that far, and you know, obviously we've seen some guys show their behind for a quick second or two, but this guy made it like a 5-minute ordeal, and even the other guys in line were like, "Boy, come on, man, you just need to get some food in you or something," you know. Yeah, sportsmanship goes a long way in this sport, especially when, you know, if you spoil it once, that reputation really might kind of walk around with you for a little bit. It might take a while for them to not see you like that, you know. But
he issued the apology really quickly, and I suspect somebody called him or somebody talked to him and said, "You better apologize." I don't think he did that of his own free will, but the sportsmanship thing. I mean, you look at a guy like Martin Fitzwater, who's got a beautiful world-class physique, one of the greatest in the world. But a lot of people, all they're going to remember about him is what a dick he was on stage to Nick Walker, you know, celebrating when Nick got second because he was so happy that Nick didn't win. You know, it leaves a poor taste in people's mouths when, you know, I remember like Craig Titus stormed off stage. This is going back like 30 years ago.
Craig Titus was a hothead.
It's a tough sport to accept, especially when, you know, you've done everything you could do. You do look the best you could possibly look. Sometimes that's good enough to win. Sometimes it isn't. Sometimes you just get beat by a better person on that day. And it's the judges, they're doing the best job they can. I don't think there's a lot of favoritism or politics anymore. I'm sure it happens from time to time, but it's hard for people to accept because they take it as a personal insult or affront when they're not chosen to win, especially Daboul, who's been top 5 at the Olympia. He's won a lot of shows. I'm sure he assumed he was going to win that, no problem. When I did my preview, he's the only classic guy I talked about because I didn't see anybody coming close to him. But I always give that caveat. I said, I'm sure there's a bunch of guys here I've never seen before, and a few of them probably incredible, and that ended up being okay. That's what happened.
I've seen it a couple times, actually, probably a lot, honestly. So I used to compete in North and South Carolina, and you know, every once in a while they'd give it to a different guy, and you know, I saw a kid one time holding the front double bicep, and after they kind of snapped one, he just got up and walked. And I've seen other guys take their medals off and look like they're going to throw them. Yeah. Or they walk backstage and they throw it across the floor in front of everybody around the tent and stuff and all their bags and everything. And, you know, Gabe will walk over to all the expediters that Kevin showed. They'll walk over to you and be like, "You better get the hell out of here." Like, you're like, "Oh, I'm sorry. It's okay." They'll forgive you real quick, but it's like, yo, you can't be acting like that up here.
Exactly.
Yeah, well, dude, Ron, this has been like just so awesome. And I can't thank you so much for coming on the show. Hopefully we can get you on again and we'll have another panel of people. We were going to have Aunt Coco with us, our other IFBB figure girl, but we'll have to get you guys linked up on the show one day and talk about some of these different shows coming up. But I appreciate you, man.
Corinne.
Yeah,
just FYI.
Auntie Coco. Yeah. So
that's
Corinne
her
Butler.
Instagram name. Yeah.
Corinne just won Junior USA's this year, and she won the figure and the women's physique
Pro
divisions. So it was pretty cool.
You know what my beef with the junior shows is?
What's that?
The junior
No
national.
bodybuilding.
Why doesn't bodybuilding get a pro card?
Hunter
I
Labrada
don't
did
understand that
Junior
either.
USA's one year when I was there coaching some people, and he was phenomenal. Now, here was the weirdest thing. They Somebody started some rumor that night that Sandy was going to give that boy a pro card that night. That didn't happen, obviously. But once again, bodybuilding myths, they spread like wildfire because he looked so good. He actually looked better for that, I think, than even when he went and won nationals and got his pro card. If not, it was very close. It's kind of like comparing Phil Heath, his first Olympia and second one. Some of the things that we're going to be looking at happen and whatnot. And Hunter was just so crisp and clean. I think he was with Andrew Vu at the time.
Oh yeah.
And I was like, boy, why did you come here? You should have just done a different show and gotten your pro card. You're going to win the whole thing. He was so perfect. This is before the pec tear. This is before his pro career. And he was already guest posing. Like, he was already guest posing as an amateur, which I thought was unheard of. Like, I never see amateurs unless it's like Nextzilla before he got his pro card, like, because he's just so freaky looking or something. But or somebody's like 7 feet tall. Like, maybe he'll get guest pose because like he's just so tall or something. But like, normally it's obviously pros.
Well, in the old days, back when I was there, in the old days, the amateurs did guest pose more because the top amateurs were, in many cases back then, as famous as a lot of the pros because it was so hard to turn pro back then.
Mm-hmm.
You knew when you went to the nationals back then, you knew like the top 10. You knew every single guy up there in the heavyweight classes. Like when Leveroni won in '91, the heavyweight class, because supers hadn't been invented yet. Just that one heavyweight division that Leveroni won, you had Flex Wheeler, Paul DeMeo, Ronnie Coleman, Chris Cormier, Matt Mendenhall, Edgar Fletcher, Bob Ciccarello. That was just one class.
Mm-hmm.
They were all those guys were very well known at the time. But now people don't do the junior shows, and people turn pro so quick that I don't know any of the top amateurs anymore. Maybe just a few. That's about it. But I couldn't name more than like 5 of the best amateur bodybuilders in the U.S. right now.
Yeah, and a lot of it might even be just their Instagram. Just like because their presence is so big or their personality. And there's some funny guys out there that aren't pros that I think are hilarious. And they're fun to watch. Maybe don't have the best examples of how to act, but sometimes it can be entertaining. But hey, I appreciate you, Ron. Yeah, we're gonna cut you loose for the day, but hey, this has been just mind blowing and awesome. So I can't
awesome,
thank you enough for coming on, and hopefully we'll get you on here again soon, and we'll have some more stuff to talk about. But hey, have a good rest of your day, and I appreciate you coming on the American Bodybuilding Network. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Absolutely.